Pavel.
제 다음 상대는 파벨 선수입니다. 잘하는 선수로 알고 있는데 여기서 만나니까 유감이네요.
My next opponent is DDaHyoNi. I know that he is very popular Korean streamer.
아직 연습을 많이 해보진 않았는데 확실히 맨 처음에 상대했던 선수 덱보다는 충분히 할만한 것 같습니다.
I don't think it's gonna be even game. I feel like my lineup is favorite against his lineup.
전략보다도 제 컨디션이 제일 중요한 것 같아요. 이번에는 확실하게 컨디션 조절 잘해서 제 역량을 발휘하는 데 주력하도록 하겠습니다. 누가 이기던 간에 서로 후회 없는 경기 했으면 좋겠습니다. 파벨 선수.
DDaHyoNi, greetings traveler.
Greetings from the commentators desk and welcome everybody to the last match of the day. It's Elimination Day. We're joined by two pink brothers in arms. It's Frodan and Sottle. I came here to replace Raven. How happy could you be? Huh?
I mean, we are matching, but I am just a mere apprentice at the school of pink, forever basking in your reflected glory, Dan.
Hey,
much like my casting career, actually.
No, not at all. You've been doing wonderfully, Sottle, and I think it's time that we get a little bit more serious despite our jokes, because there's a lot on the line. We have a lot of stories going into this fourth match. Obviously, DDaHyoNi and Pavel a lot to prove, but one thing that's also kind of on the line is Europe is still yet to survive an elimination match today.
Yeah, and I was actually just very quickly talking to Neyman outside just before I got on the desk for this matchup, and he was echoing that sentiment that they're all really behind Pavel at this point, that him and Dr. Hippie both rooting for those guys to go through, really get EU started in this tournament, really, or in this top 16. Really want to have some representatives holding it down for us in the top 8, and it could all start here with Pavel.
That's right, so let's go ahead and start things off with Druid versus Shaman. Now, we do know that Pavel has his own style. He does like to bring his own variation of decks.
Right.
He's bringing Malygos Rogue, which is inspired a lot by Standard Dachi. I know you're a big fan of that player as well.
Yep.
Really interesting to see Pavel bring that lineup. What do you think about the choice of bringing that? He's the only Rogue player outside of Group A to bring Rogue. Why bring Malygos Rogue of all variants?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough thing for me to articulate, really, because if I was bringing Rogue to a tournament right now, I'd be favoring the kind of questing list that we're seeing from Tice. But you know, the idea with Malygos Rogue potentially is that it's more of a guaranteed win condition against certain control decks. You don't rely on pushing all in as much as you do with questing. You can just slow play, you know, maybe even as far as turn 8, turn 9 or beyond to start drawing with Gadgetzan. Just get a big, like 30 damage OTK kill in hand with the Malygos. Really punishes some of those slower controlling decks. But yeah, Rogue has been a big talking point of Group A in particular. But as you said, Pavel with the somewhat risky decision of bringing Rogue to this group as well.
And of course, we do have some decisions from DDaHyoNi, as we do take a minute, by the way, to just get these players officially settled into their first game. DDaHyoNi also has his own variation of odd choices. One of them, of course, being a big fan favorite, Nexus Champion Sarad. I think this card has a lot of fun moments on YouTube, but does it have place in competitive play, Sottle?
It's a really weird card to kind of get my head around as to its inclusion. When I was first looking at that list, I was like, is this a 5-mana legendary? Obviously, I have the foreign characters, and I'm looking at it, it's like, it's not Halaziel, that's not right. Like, what is this card? And it's like, yeah, it's Nexus Champ. And sure, I mean, Shaman is a deck that now, even more than the Inspire mechanic that was kind of pushed out with one of the expansions, Shaman now is a deck that leverages just pressing hero power more than any other deck in the history of Hearthstone almost. So having that huge Inspire mechanic in there with the Nexus Champ makes some sense, but I'd love to see it in action here from DDaHyoNi.
All right, quick apologies on the technical delays, but we're successfully into game number 1, and already quite the electric start for both players, having Wild Growth on Druid's side and having the Spirit Claws with Totem Golem. Who really benefits more from that early game start?
I think the initiative is really on the Shaman in this matchup to really push and get going. Pavel's taking a little bit of a risk here just by developing Fandral on the board, but with his list in particular, if this eats a Hex in the early game, even without picking up any value, of course, Pavel is bringing an unusual list with the double Dark Arakoa packed into the late game as well, so he does have those extra late game threats that he can leverage now that a Hex has gone away.
Yeah. Or so we think. DDaHyoNi does have an awkward hand, double Hex, double Pharaoh Spirits. There is one of those Dark Arakoas you mentioned. Pavel's also not even playing a Yogg-Saron. No faith in the old god. Chooses instead to put his faith in, well, I guess a Cthulhu Worshipper, which does have a reasonable sized body. 5/7 taunt is really hard to get through.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of just consistent along the power curve with what Ancient of War does at 7 mana. It's just Pavel is looking to do it a turn earlier with the 5/7 on turn 6. So definitely an interesting tech inclusion. We saw him running this inclusion in the preliminaries as well, and it did work for him there. But no other player really catching on to this train, which does make you wonder exactly how much value he's going to get out of it. But again, interesting tech inclusions in these core decks from both players, just bringing their own interesting twist on things.
Looks like Pavel opts out of playing the Dark Arakoa straight up because it's very threatening Tunnel Trog state right now. Instead, he gets nourished so he can keep up in the resource battle, which is huge. One of the big things about the Shaman is that without Manatide Totem being on the board, you don't really have much good source of card draw. You have at best an Attribute that cycles.
Yeah, definitely one of the things you can do. It's so hard to run them out of gas on the board. As long as they have cards in hand, they can keep refilling so consistently. But if you run them out of gas in hand, that is one of the ways you can really make them sputter. And that seems to be the line that Pavel is going for here.
All right, some more minions being played out here, but nothing too threatening here for DDaHyoNi. It seems like Pavel can just sort of take his time, you know, force his opponent to have that second Hex, which he does, but outside of that, DDaHyoNi has to specifically be able to refill his hand and play some other stuff to snowball the board.
Yeah, that's one thing Pavel's actually not doing right now. He is snap calling a lot of his plays in this situation. Would like to see him sit back and just take a few moments, even though the plays seem quite linear right now. There's always that chance that you can discover one of those magical hidden plays that actually gives you a few extra percentage points here and there. So we'll see if Pavel continues this rapid pace throughout the series.
Yeah, you know, sometimes it's so fast, we have to blaze past even just thinking about whether or not the play line is correct because the next play is already happening. And DDaHyoNi, you know, taking a second to really evaluate, this is his second Hex.
Yeah.
You know, what's the value of being able to keep that Hex versus play the Azure Drake and forgo the hero power, and that sets up for a better Thunderblood Valiant. So I think he just considers that he's going to really try to use Thunderblood Valiant to carry him home here.
Oh, it's playable. The moment of suspense to find out how much Arcane Giant cost. Exactly 3, so you can squeeze in the Raven Idol as well. And you were just talking about the implications of using both Hexes on relatively, you know, mid-range threats when there's still 2 Arcane Giants, the Malagos itself, etc., still left in the deck. Now the AA is going to come down and try and punish.
Naturalize is definitely interesting, but if you can't deal with a big minion, well, like Flame Breathe Faceless, that's a card I also didn't really expect to see much of this tournament, and yet we do see it in the deck. 2 of them, in fact, in the mid-range show.
Yeah, the draw played the spoiler for me. I was just about to say, I mean, this Naturalized pickup is very much influenced by the fact that he knows there are more big threats in this Shaman deck than usual from DDaHyoNi, and there you see just several of them in hand right now. All of those are potential Naturalized targets right now, and Nexus champion Sarad in hand. This game could be about to go places, Dan.
Yeah, if Pavel can deal with the pressure, that is. Because right now he's caught in an awkward spot where there's just too many mid-sized threats to deal with until he picks up that swipe. All right, so swipe with the Azure Drake next turn could be really good, unless he needs to use that now to remove.
No, I think he can get away with it this turn. The pairing of Drake and Swipe together is just way too powerful to you know, overreact to this board state right now. He has the AA that he can use as a little trading tool right now. He can even just go ahead and play Maya Keeper here. He's not under an enormous amount of threat, but it's about how much value he wants to give into a potential Lightning Storm, which he would be playing into heavily by playing the Maya Keeper, especially with double spell damage on the board right now.
Well, his opponent shows 9, and if you anticipate Thunder Bluff and a Lightning Bolt, very safe assumptions usually in terms of damage range.
Sure.
That does put you in dangerous areas of how much pressure your opponent can put you at.
Yeah, so yeah, we could see a Wrath come out here and a Hero Power. A Hero Power potentially sets up a better swipe for you as well, so you might not have to commit the Drake. You might have a more flexible turn. You get the 1 damage onto one of these tokens. He's actually going to go ahead and innovate the Mire Keeper as well. Okay, I like this play too, but like I said, just the exposure to the AoE just concerns me a little bit with the double spell damage on the board.
There's only one Lightning Storm. I think you're talking the Maelstrom Portal is also definitely frightening. So it's one of those things where maybe you can't win if you play around it.
Maybe that's true.
Well, speaking of big dudes, why is the Flame Wreath Faceless not even that commonly played, despite it being very commonly joked about as the strongest card in Hearthstone history, even though we know it's not?
It's kind of just the power of Shaman at this point. They get so much leverage just through, you know, spending their mana efficiently, weaving in hero powers every turn, that they honestly don't need to take the risk of the investment of the 4 mana 7/7, because the thing about the 4 mana 7/7 is it doesn't actually cost 4 mana. It actually costs a lot more than that, including the overload. So there are opportunities for certain classes to just punish you for playing such a slow card, and mid-range Shaman just operates in a much more fluid manner than this right now.
Are you saying that the Flame Wreath Faceless is a balanced card?
I am saying that people may overreact
I'm totally setting you
to
up,
the
dude.
power.
I'm totally... Don't even answer the question.
I know.
This is America. You can plead the fifth.
Wow, is that a thing? Damn, I
That
didn't
is
know.
very much a thing.
I'm just not used to all this freedom, Dan. Why can't I hold all this freedom?
Well, maybe after the group stages today, maybe you can change your allegiances. We'll see, Sato. There's still time. There's still time for you yet. In the meantime, Pavel with that Azure Drake swipe, he picks up the second Arcane Giant, huge pickup, and now the pressure has completely reversed. DDaHyoNi is the one who's in trouble.
The smile from Pavel, he just looked up over the monitor at DDaHyoNi as he naturalized the Flame Wreath Faceless and just gave him a little cheeky grin. And DDaHyoNi now has to go fishing for some help from Nexus champion Sarad. Does not get it. Divine Favor. It's the tech cards from Pavel, the extra chunk of that Dark Arakoa baiting out the Hex that let those Arcane Giants run rampant in the end.
And Pavel off to a great start, although it's just the beginning. You know, can he be able to stack on the wins with some of his unusual choices? And DDaHyoNi, will Nexus champion Sarad be a heavy lifter, or is he just going to sit in the sidelines as a victory or defeat cigar?
I mean, we will wait and see. Nexus champion Sarad came down way too late, too big a ask for it, but he does still have to pick up a win with that Shaman. I can't wait to see where he goes with it.
All right, game number 2 is coming up in just a second. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
The Hearthstone.
Do you think you have a playstyle?
In Hearthstone, it's not about playstyle, it's about which play have better chances to give you a win.
What about if you don't know which play is better?
I will choose play which I feel give me more chance to win.
How did you prepare for the World Championship?
Just thinking about which decks is the best, test it on ladder and with my practice partners.
Like, who were your main practice partners?
I don't have main practice partners, but I was practice with Yok, Maverick, it's French players. Also with Naiman and Hippie we had Skype call.
What's the Russian Hearthstone scene like?
Yeah, Russian community have a lot of strong players, for example, Shtanodachi, Unvi, Kalenta, Naiman.
Who would you want to beat the most?
Doesn't matter too much.
Not Dr. Hippie?
Yeah, it will be nice to beat Dr. Hippie. This little troll.
Currently up 1-0, Pavel looking to cement his legacy, and quite the journey it's been, even dating back to last year, Subtle.
Yeah, and it's something that I don't think people really give Pavel enough credit for. You know, it's really easy to talk about Tice and Kranich in terms of actually being repeat World Championship competitors, but Pavel was only 1 game away from achieving that feat last year, and he came right down to the line, and here he is again, one of the most consistent players in the game. I mean, just look up his stats on Gosu Gamers rankings. 80 and 31 last time I checked in competitive Hearthstone games. That's an incredible ratio.
That is fantastic. You don't really see that in performances, especially in a kind of a significant sample size. It's over 100 matches.
It's a real sample, yeah.
It's a real sample. I mean, it is kind of true that we do sometimes bias statistics. That is one of the jokes that we have internally with Nick Cash, is that sometimes we should check our sources. And at this point, we have to start using sources in quotation marks. Yeah, Pavel was one series away, dropping to Life Coach 3-1 last year at the Europe Championships happening in Prague. Shout out to them. The crowd was awesome. Of course, he was definitely an unceremoniously exited with quite the blunder that has lived in history.
Careful, Amnesiac will be correcting your pronunciation in no time if you keep up like that.
He's not watching. He's already counting all his dollar bills for making around a vape. Young Savage is not here. But Pavel's bounced back brilliantly, and now he represents his new team, Millennium, and also is just really passionate just about Hearthstone.
Right.
After he makes some money, he says he wants to continue to start his own business and definitely wants to stay related to Hearthstone even with that operation.
Yeah, and that's great to see. You know, it's what this industry needs, is people willing to grow with it beyond the point where they stop playing the games, is continuing to be major factors in it, and that is the line that Pavel wants to take, and that journey could all start here with a good run towards BlizzCon. But the Shaman is going to have a second bash here from DDaHyoNi, and picking up the Blood Mage on curve with the Spirit Claws is huge in most matchups. But against Tempo Mage specifically, it's enormous because they have so many snowball minions that they want to stick on the board in the early game, and the Spirit Claws just shuts them all down.
Yeah, how viable is the alternative plan for the Mage? Sometimes the Mage just shifts to a different game plan, maybe the value orients, or maybe the fact that they go for big burst.
Right.
Which of those are probably the better alternatives if you lose control of the board early on?
I think the control style is definitely plan A in this matchup, at least the way I play it. I even like to, sometimes mulligan away minions and look for spells in my opening hand, because Shaman actually have a lot of game against opening hand minions. They have Spirit Claws, Maelstrom Portal, Lightning Bolt, etc. If you just repeatedly kill their stuff for a while, try and swing the board later, that's something that it's a lot harder for them to interact with.
This was definitely an interesting choice from Pavel, to say the least. I don't necessarily know the implications of what he was planning immediately, but he just played Flamewaker on the board instead of taking a little bit more passive route. I've seen a lot of players actually just hero power and pass, try to build up their hand count. What is Pavel trying to achieve by playing the Flamewaker like that on turn 4?
I think he's just trying to force a reaction. I think he feels that his hand is a little bit clunky right now, and if he gave the Shaman another free turn, it would just start to snowball too quickly. He'd be under too much pressure. So he was almost just using his Flamewaker as a distraction there, as a roadblock that DDaHyoNi would have to slow down to deal with. And it gave him a little bit of time that he needed to develop this Drake on the board now.
Yeah, if you look at Pavel's list, it definitely seems more mid-range oriented. He has the Faceless Summoner, the Water Elemental, and he tops out at Ragnaros, but it's not like he has Yogg-Saron or Antonius, some of these slower options that we've seen even in just the previous series with the Ulsic. But without those late-game options, then you definitely want to play somewhat tempo-oriented. So I definitely think that there's credence to what you said. Trying to see if he can drain his opponents out of resources and fight back on the board eventually.
Yeah, because he's the core thing that he's cut out for some of those chunkier mid-range minions is the kind of Forgotten Torch, Acolyte of Pain package that we see. So that lowers the amount of actual removal that he has in the deck. So he finds it much harder to go spot for spot in this situation. But now, this is the huge kind of swing turn that I was talking about. 6 missiles from the Arcanes, 4 more, and then the additional Frostbolt and 2 more missiles means that he's in really good shape to get a full clear on this board now. Wow. Gets it already. He can save a missiles if he wants it, but nope, just jams it out. He's going to take this as his indication to start going aggressive now.
The speed of which Pavel can play that with perfect mana and perfect confidence speaks volumes. One, either he's a madman and he's rushing things and he's a little bit nervous, or 2, that he's extremely experienced and calm about it. We've seen players like Jason So who do this with Control Warrior despite the turns being usually a little bit complicated.
Did DDaHyoNi have any other option there? I mean, this is obviously wonderfully lined up for him, just for Pavel, just the Firelands Portal on the Fire Elemental, but did DDaHyoNi have another alternative there? I don't think he did. I think he just had to take that risk that the portal wasn't there. Pavel obligingly gobbled up the free target for it on turn 7.
At the same time, your opponent plays 2 Firelands Portals. It is rather common, and you're coming up on that 7 where the swing would be very decisive. It's tough. It's tough. It's not like DDaHyoNi didn't have alternatives with that Maelstrom Portal, but at the same time, there's no guarantee with the spell damage rolling off the hero power.
Yeah, and I think with Drake in hand as well, he was maybe wanting to hold on to the portal a little bit. He had some options with Hex as well on the Flame Waker. I think he had to recognize how powerful the swing turn was from Pavel and just take that as his initiative to take a risk, honestly. Just recognize that in that one turn, he'd been swung behind the play in the game. And now the Drake portal is going to combine to take out the Flame Waker. And there is a trade just straight up for it on the board with the Silverhand Knight. But Pavel needs to start trying to rebuild here or just make the push for lethal.
Yeah, just a little bit off. Going to search for that fireball or whatever ability he has to kill his opponent.
Hello.
That's 8 damage right now.
That is. That puts him in range of second Frostbolt or Fireball draw for the rest of the game if he wants to go for it.
Yeah, at the same time, he's at 28. And Mid-Range Shaman does need time to set up. It's not a one-turn kill deck. So if Pavel chooses to push damage here, if he plays the Face of Summoner, he at least has guaranteed way to charge with the Polymorph Boar, and that perhaps gives him an ability to count down if he wants to be aggressive.
Sure. It's just the, you know, the inclination of it, it's a 1-1 on the board, right? Like, that's the best target you're going to get for an offensive Polybore if you want to go down that line and really start making the push, but I think he realizes he's in reasonable control of the board, and with Faceless Summoner in hand, like you said, he can afford to play board for a little while longer still.
Or so he thinks, until Shaman's able to utilize some of these small pieces of removal and board presence, and all of a sudden, it's a little bit confusing. Wasn't I in control of the board, and how did it get all the way like this?
Yeah, Shaman is as Shaman does. This is kind of just what they do to you in this situation. There's the Frostbolt! He would have been in range the whole time. Picks up Morose.
Well, that's certainly interesting.
That's a pretty good combination with Polymorph Boar at some point if he's getting 1-1s to stick to the board.
Yeah, or just maybe Morose plus Polymorph Boar Morose if he keeps dealing with it. And now that he saw a Maelstrom Portal from the hand, it's definitely a lot safer. Of course, Morose summons a 1-1 at the end of the turn, every turn. So infinite value, hypothetically, if he wants to play the value game. Because he's not going to be able to just punch through with Bird. There's going to be Feral Spirits coming out. So I don't know what happened, man. You were so pure and analytical when you first joined the Championship Tour. And now you're just a guy dressing in pink and making role player voiceovers.
I'm sorry. I've let everyone
You've changed,
down.
man.
I've let everyone down.
That's my job. You're the one that's supposed to be reeling me in.
I'd like to issue a formal apology to everyone that misses the days of the guy that never smiled. But here we are. This is what you have now. You can grin and bear it.
I blame Rob Wing for this.
I do. I blame Rob Wing for most things, honestly.
Yes. Well, DDaHyoNi probably a little bit frustrated with his inability to truly push. He did play it on Flame Strike last turn. That's why he was rather conservative loading onto the board. Now he's still at a crossroads of how aggressive he wants to be. I don't mind just at least attacking the face. It just gets the onus onto killing your opponent.
Yeah, I mean, the crucial point we kind of glossed over while we were dunking on Rob is that he just drew that Maelstrom portal, which blew out the Morose completely, and now has left this Polymorph Boar stranded. And I have to go back to the question. Obviously, I don't want to be results-oriented right now and say that the Frostbolt is in hand here that would have ended the game if he'd have made the push, but the Polymorph Boar is also just stranded. So did he miss a trick? Did he miss an opportunity to push this boar damage to the face?
He definitely had his moments, too. He saved the Polymorph Boar potentially as killing damage, but with the Feral Spirits coming in again, the second pair,
right?
Really tricky for Pavel to now utilize his Polymorph Boar. He might actually use it more even as removal spot, or if he just chooses to transform his Polymorph Boar right now. He's in an awkward spot, too, because Effigy on a 1-mana minion is pretty worthless.
Yeah.
But on a 3-mana minion, who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it could make some things happen for sure, but it's really all about how much he values having that boar in play, but he is just going to go for it here, and he's actually going to straight up trade it, is he? Did he queue up the attack? Yeah, so he's going to try and get an effigy on the next minion, and with the extra minion presence he has, with the Faceless Summoner and Firelands portals as well, but speaking of minion presence.
How did this all go so wrong? DDaHyoNi is really afraid of Mirror Entity, but I think you might be in the spot where you just have to push. You don't really have much time. Sees that it's not, breathes a sigh of relief, and that is a 2-turn lethal setup for DDaHyoNi. Pavel doesn't even have fireballs and out, and that's usually what you're looking for in this spot. He would be 1 damage off.
Yeah, he's going to need the one-off Flame Strike to be able to buy himself time here. He has the Frostbolt that he can use to clear up the board, and now it is just a straight up battle of draws. Is that number 2? Oh, sorry, I thought that was Flame Wreath Faceless again. Oh,
Yeah. That's usually what happens, right? You just clear the board after they had the 7-7. Hey,
all right. Let's stop pinging him down. We're going to get there.
yeah, you do have him on 5 turns with this. So you can whittle him down slowly but surely, but you do have the opportunity to pick up more burn. There is that second Firelands portal, for example.
Yep.
I wonder.
Pavel might just save the Fireball because there's no need to use it right now. Unless he wants to use the Fireball immediately so that way he can play Firelands Portal the following turn. That would be the only thing to consider. Or if he needs to Ragnaros, for example, too. Ragnaros is a possibility for him to get some big damage.
Yep, very true, but he really wanted to draw a minion that turn. With the Effigy in play, he's actually got a kind of concealed advantage in this top deck war because the first minion he draws is actually equivalent to 2 minions, so wanted to pick something up. Manworm is a minion, but it's not the greatest Effigy target, but we'll see if it gets work done for him here.
Do you want to ping the 1/1?
I think it's a little bit better too, yeah. Especially since you know you're about to Effigy roll, and a lot of the one mana Effigies that you're going to get will just trade straight up for that Searing Totem if you leave it there.
It's true. Yeah, you do have the possibility of getting pretty strong minions too. Flame Imp. You also can get the injured Kval there. But I think it is worth it, especially if he has a way to buff those totems. Flame Tongue Totem would put so much pressure, or even a Thunderbuff Valiant.
I think Pavel, again, just going back to the consideration now with the Fireball, if DDaHyoNi is forced to remove this Mana Worm using his Spirit Claws, if he gets spell damage, then the Fireball to the face actually gains an extra point of damage by buffing the Mana Worm, which I think is one of his principal considerations here. Yeah, he does send it downtown, so now the pattern of this game is very much set out now. Pavel is just going to try and squeeze through these last points of damage. DDaHyoNi is going to try and build a board so he can get the counter push through in time.
4 turns. 4 turns is all DDaHyoNi has. And maybe even less, depending on how Pavel's be able to draw into more direct damage, which is pretty much all his deck has, besides a couple of impactful minions that can potentially have some good battle cries, like the Face of Summoner. So at this point, DDaHyoNi's wondering, should I use maybe a Lightning Storm on this thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's about keeping the Lightning Bolt to accelerate your clock. It's also thinking about Counterspell and Spellbender and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
He has so many considerations in his mind right now. Throws out the Storm, gets the news that it's not going to be countered. Does roll low on the Mana Worm, though, which leaves him in such a difficult spot now.
Yeah. The conservative play was to Lightning Bolt the Mana Worm first. I guess if you were playing around Spellbender, that would be the case as well.
Yep.
I mean, so he chooses to do so. He's going to also get news that it's Effigy, by the way.
And with nothing left to remove with, he's going to have to use his face here if he wants to take control of this minion. Is just a 1/1, though. Babbling Book got the Effigy. Effigy got the Babbling Book.
Wow. Yep. It's a very harmonious relationship. I like it. And at this point, DDaHyoNi is sweating a little bit because he has to use this as removal, this Tunnel Tracker as removal, if he can't deal with the board.
Mana Tide picked up, misses on the Taunt Totem, so he's now obligated to make the trade with the Tunnel Trog. There's no way around this, and that just gives Pavel more and more time. He actually chose to give up a ping to face to get a bit of board presence there and is immediately rewarded. Wow. The Rag pickup! The Rag pickup is so big, and now is this one turn?
I don't know, it's pretty close. Because these little 1/1s are annoying too to deal with.
You need something to go with it or a Taunt Totem.
Okay, so the Totem will come first, but it's essentially just down to how Ragnaros eliminates a minion.
Yep, he needs a Taunt Totem and he needs to kill a minion with the Rag. He cannot afford to use his face on either of these minions. He has no way of leveraging his board state.
Oh.
He misses the Taunt Totem, which means that is just the game, is it not?
Can he taunt his own minion? No, he can't. He can use Hex on one of his own totems, but I don't think it'll do anything.
Nope, because again, there's no way he can use his own life total to take out one of the minions, so something is going to connect to the face regardless, and the ping goes through.
Wow, the time when you need the taunt totem, he's nowhere to be found. And DDaHyoNi doesn't even have a chance to end the game. And who knew? The little babbling book that could. You laughed. All of you, I know you guys who are watching in chat and also all over the world, you were laughing when the babbling book and the effigy were made together, summoning the babbling book. But who's laughing now?
I mean, very, very clearly from the art on the card, it's Babbling Book that is laughing now. But Pavel is also, well, he's clearly not laughing, but he's very, very happy right now, I promise. This is the kind of run that he needed. The EU players are really struggling here, and this is the kind of run he needs to put himself in a comfortable position. EU definitely with some questions to answer here, but the consistency of Pavel, that win rate that he has in competitive play, means that he was guaranteed to make some sort of fight back in this tournament.
That's right. So we're wrapping up game number 2. Let's see if happens in game number 3. Can Pavel continue his momentum? We'll find out right after this.
How does it feel to be back?
진짜 완벽히 똑같아서 한 번 더 핸섬과 형 이길 수 있을 것 같아요.
Does it bring back a lot of memories?
우승했던 그 느낌?
Since you won in winter, how's your life changed?
일단은 시청자들이 굉장히 많이 늘어가지고 제 플레이 하는 거를 되게 재밌어 하세요. 제가 진짜 미쳤나 봐요. 반응 보고 같이 웃고 떠드는 게 굉장히 또 좋아하시고 또 저도 그게 또 좋고요.
How did you prepare for the World Championship?
왜냐면 이제 평범한 덱들을 이제 많이 가져올 거기 때문에 그거에 대해서 강력한 덱을 준비를 했고 그거를 이제 하스스톤 한국 선수들이랑 의견을 조율하면서 맞춤형으로 짰기 때문에 아마 상성적으로는 제가 다 유리하지 않을까 생각돼요.
You've gained a lot of new fans since you won. They say that you're just a streamer and that you just like to play fun decks. What would you say to your fans to reassure them?
스트림이랑 진짜 제가 대회 하는 거랑은 확실히 다르다는 거를 좀 보여드리고 싶고 그다음에 우승하기 전까지는 한국 돌아오지 않겠습니다.
You can live with me,
Yeah.
but you have to give me mod in your Twitch chat.
Yes.
I'll sleep on the couch. You can have my bed. It's true.
Nice.
Thanks. I like your sweatshirt.
DDaHyoNi. Well, he was all laughs and smiles during his time with TJ, and who really isn't? I mean, TJ is just so awesome.
I think there's just a general aura of misery around the entire venue because TJ is not here.
Yeah, and I think DDaHyoNi's feeling a little bit too, but maybe not because TJ isn't here, but mainly because the pressure that's being put on him by Pavel, who, by the way, we didn't talk much about this. He banned the Hunter.
He did.
From DDaHyoNi, and that's really unusual because, you know, Hunter doesn't really warrant the ban compared to Shaman or Warrior or sometimes even Mage. Yet, why do we choose Hunter here?
I mean, if you look at Pavel's lineup, he not only has a control-style warrior of his own, he also has this rogue that he's queuing in now. So Hunters now are just too aggressive for rogues to deal with a lot of the time, as well as the mid-range Hunters with the Savannah Highmanes and the Rag as DDaHyoNi is running, or famously at this point just beat up on the warrior. So he just felt like his lineup was a little bit too weak to that Hunter overall and just banned it out. It's not the first Hunter ban we've seen in this tournament. It's been banned out by one player before as well, so a lot of players giving some respect to Hunter's place in the meta right now.
Certainly. Looking at opening hands, Pavel has a really nice opportunity to just stay safe early on. His opponent can play any minion, he can backstab or shadow strike it. He was on the coin, so he got an extra card. DDaHyoNi already is just going to have to frostbolt that. Pavel, well, not really that much of an exciting turn, but it'll start to get really good once he hits Tomb Pillager.
Yeah, the Tomb Pillager Drake curve is just so solid for him right now. DDaHyoNi does have the 1 4-drop that most Tempo Mage lists play these days, the Barnes. Such a weird inclusion in the deck because at first you just don't think there's too much value for it, but the more and more you think about it, almost every minion in the deck has some sort of upside with Barnes, but he actually goes for an aggressive Flamewaker play instead. What do you think about this?
This is pretty interesting considering that there's a lot of ways Rogue can deal with it early on. It doesn't seem very high value in terms of being able to pressure your opponent. Usually the Flamewaker used in matches where you're trying to press your opponent, you're going for a lot more damage in board swings. And that felt more like a tempo play against a deck that doesn't really necessarily warrant that.
Pavel now a little bit of an awkward turn. He had such a powerful minion curve of his own with the Tomb Pillager into Azure Drake that he's kind of been stuck now reacting to minions from DDaHyoNi, and we actually saw the exact flip side of this in the previous series, right? Where Pavel, on the previous game, sorry, where Pavel was playing the Tempo Mage and just played out Flamewaker, played out Azure Drake, and it just forced it to be dealt with, slowed down the development of the Shaman opponent. In this case, he's the one being slowed down and actually chooses to create board tension with the Azure Drake as opposed to taking it out.
Alright, well, DDaHyoNi just going to ignore this Tomb Pillager, doesn't want to give the opponent the coin, wants to put as much pressure as possible. Of course, DDaHyoNi is playing the Antonidas version of the Temple Mage, hence why he has the Cabalist Tomes and the Emperor Thorsan. Pavel, in the meantime, playing his Malygos Rogue, does have a lot of direct damage, but Sinister Strike's not really that useful in this position outside of building a big Edwin.
Yeah, how big an Edwin can he build? Because he has to think about discounted Ragnaros, because normally a huge Edwin, you know, Mage has to deal with things honestly, if you like. They have to deal with minions with damage. They don't have hard removal transform effects most of the time. They're not running a copy of Polymorph. So can he get the Edwin outside of Ragnaros range right now? Sinister Strike, backstab. I mean, he could make a pretty big Edwin, but there is the threat of that Ragnaros coming back. So we'll see what he ends up going with here. He has the extra coin from the Tomb Pillager to play with as well.
Yeah, he could make a bigger Edwin to play around it, especially because now that the coin activates the Eviscerate preemptively. One thing that's really annoying is the fact that, you know, if you want to make Edwin a little bit bigger, you probably toss in the backstab.
Yes. And, I mean, this is exactly it, right? I mean, he's playing around Ragnaros by backstabbing that. I think this is very, very purposefully what he's doing.
Well, not fully. If he, I thought he was going to coin out the Edwin, but if he's saving the coin...
never mind.
Uh-oh. Okay, well, Ragnaros on 7. I mean, first of all, his opponent has to have the Ragnaros be discounted. So it's definitely unlikely, although, oh, it misses. That's not good.
It's definitely not, especially with the sap in hand now and Pavel's ability to develop extra minions onto the board to reduce the Ragnaros outcome. Coins out the sap now, pressure in from the Edwin, and now this attempt from Rag might just be too unlikely. DDaHyoNi might have to find an alternate strategy here.
Yeah, this is almost lights out if you can't deal with this Edwin this turn. Okay, that helps.
It does. He does have Drake Fireball. That's 1 damage short of being able to take care of the AA, but Fireball Arcane Blast gets it done just on its own, so then has 4 mana available, can still play the Azure Drake, even though it's kind of some serious overkill at that point.
What to do?
You know, if he has Barnes hit into a spell damage minion,
That's a good point.
that actually is almost a guaranteed clear, I guess.
Flamewaker 2 at that point.
Well, I guess you're not necessarily guaranteed a clear. I'm just assuming that the Marquine Missiles goes reasonably. There is an opportunity for it to miss.
Yeah, Barnes pulling Cult Sorcerer or Flamewaker. Sorcerer's Apprentice at this point is reasonable as well, I suppose. So it might be some value to Barnes this turn, but it looks like DDaHyoNi is just, you know, fingering a consistent clear here with the Fireball. Whoa! That is the opposite of consistent.
That is pretty ridiculous if it works, but oh man, I guess that's an okay outcome. That was the average outcome.
Sure was. Fan of Knives pick up for now for Pavel. He hasn't hit his Auctioneer yet. Hasn't hit, and his hand is running a little bit dry because of it, so he's going to have to find a way through this Rag right now, or he is threatened to lose that AA on the next turn because the ping can just take care of the 1-1 right now.
Yeah, I think in DDaHyoNi's mind, he feels like his opponent couldn't kill the Ragnaros, so maybe if he drains a bunch of his resources, Rogue might be in a bad spot. Shiv allows him to continue to draw through his deck, just looking for any way to finish the game. Malygos plus Arcane Explosion is definitely something that can help him clear the board next turn if he needs to. Because if Ragnaros lands onto the Van Cave, or if even worse, DDaHyoNi ends up just going for the win here.
I mean, DDaHyoNi absolutely goes for the win here, right? Ping off the 1-1 Fireball the face, and just either way, Rag puts you in a solid position.
Perhaps. Can you increase your chances to win too if the missiles go optimistically? I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think that's the case, unfortunately. So DDaHyoNi is going to go for the Barnes. Almost the same thing as the Azure Drake. Almost.
Yeah, the Buns has been stuck in hand for quite a long time. He had it in his hand on turn 4 and just chose not to play it. It's been stuck there ever since. That's an Apprentice. That gives him a massive turn now.
Wait, well, now you can actually play all of that.
Yep.
Pretty much everything. Just chooses not to play the Azure Drake because he really wants to account for the fact that Arcane Missile's guaranteed hits. A little bit of a rush turn, but the point is he needs to hit, and he doesn't.
Oh, now the outs! The outs for Pavel! Malagos!
My goodness.
Prep! Sinister Strike! Is EU about to get rolling, Dan?
That's up 3-0, and DDaHyoNi didn't really take his time to think through some of the options. And I feel like Pavel is just kind of unstoppable right now.
Yeah, I mean, he used that Shiv. He gave up the potential damage of the Shiv on the turn before and drew the Malagos, and it left him needing an out off the top, and he picked up exactly the Sinister Strike to put through, and you can see the stress for DDaHyoNi right now. He feels like he has something to prove, that he's not just a streamer, he's not just a guy that plays fun decks, he's a guy that takes competitive Hearthstone very, very seriously, and there's so much pain going through the minds of these players that are dropping out early here. Their dreams are potentially being shattered so early on.
All right, well, we're going to find out what happens in Game 4. Is this going to be the first sweep of the day? We'll find out right after this.
The Hearth.
What was your strategy with your decks coming into the World Championship?
I just bring decks which is, in my opinion, the best. I mean, all my decks is good against Control Warrior, maybe, except Druid, but Druid also have decent chance against it. And all my decks, in general, very strong.
So, how do you think you compare to the other players at the World Championship?
I don't think that anyone have better chance to win BlizzCon than me. Players have less chance than me, I think, and someone have equal chance.
Do you think winning BlizzCon will change your life?
Yeah, it will definitely change my life. I mean, I will get a lot of money, more popularity.
You were very close to qualifying for the World Championship last year.
Yep.
How did it feel this year after you won the last call and qualified?
Yeah, I'm super glad that I qualified for BlizzCon and that I'm here. Hopefully I will win BlizzCon.
Keeping the EU hopes alive as Pavel's up 3-0. We've had a long day so far, Sottle. We've had a lot of Game 7s and a lot of dramatic back and forths. But this one looks like it might close out early. DDaHyoNi, if it's any indication of how the series has gone so far, it might not just be his day.
Yeah, I think our series so far have gone to the maximum 21 games, if I remember rightly, all 3 to 4 threes. So Pavel is doing God's work right now, trying to get this one done quickly, but DDaHyoNi doesn't care how long it takes. There is much more at stake than just his time right now. There is a spot in the BlizzCon top 8, and he needs to fight back from 0-3 down to 4-3, clean sweeping Pavel's Control Warrior.
All right, well, he's going to go into Druid, hoping he can take down the Warrior. Now, I know this Druid has run into problems in the past with Warrior, specifically the fact that the Cthulhu Warrior just seems to gain a ton of health, and it's just hard to really get past that. Do you feel like the Druid has picked up? Has anything changed recently, especially now that we look at DDaHyoNi's list that has, you know, 2 Ancients of War and Ragnaros? Does that make it better, or do you feel like that nothing really changes about the difficulty for Druid to overcome this matchup?
I mean, I think Druid is favored in this matchup. I think against Cthulhu Warrior, the problem that some players run into is that Cthulhu Warrior takes away one of the win conditions completely, because this matchup is very much about being flexible as the Druid, reacting to the state of the game, understanding whether you're going to burst or whether you're going to win through minion presence. And the fact that Cthulhu Warrior can just gain so much life, as you said, that takes away one of the potential outs from the Druid and leaves them just with the minion dominance line. And a lot of players sometimes don't recognize that early enough, but with the amount of threats that DDaHyoNi has in here, Double Ancient of War, Rag, as you said, on top of all the usual stuff, he should be able to push a run together, start bomb chaining the opponent, exhaust the removals.
Yeah, well, so far, not a crazy amount of things going on. It's just pretty much Pavel cycling his acolytes, trying to get stuff onto the board here. Pavel gets the Caduce chosen right on time.
Yeah, and you can see he's just kind of feeling it right now. The plays are coming easy to Pavel right now. He's snap playing again. He's back in his groove. He needs to make sure he's just not getting overconfident in this position. Again, a very strong start with the Warrior here. DDaHyoNi nourishes for cards, does now pick up some proactive threats in the form of Drakes and that Arcane Giant that will come a little bit later. But Pavel is just going to turn on the aggro switch now, get his 10-10 Cthulhu locked up, and pretty soon he's curving straight into that Veclaw.
Yeah, it is interesting that he just pushes out the Disciple of Cthulhu so liberally. I mean, a lot of people use that as removal on minions. Do you think it's that important to push it out because he wants to play Sylvanas on 6 and to the Veclaw on 7?
Well, two things. He's either going to just continue tempoing with Sylvanas this turn, or he gathers that he's going to need to react to something now. This is the first turn where he's going to have to deal with a threat. So, say if there's a Fandral turn or whatever, he now has this turn locked up to shield block, shield slam, and it doesn't interrupt his turn 7 going into Veclaw.
Cool. That's definitely an interesting way to be proactive about it. And now that DDaHyoNi's just playing more reactive, I mean, Pavel is just going to continue to be the one trying to set the tone, although he chooses to pivot here and plays a shield block instead.
Yeah, right? Bailing out, just valuing how important Sylvanas can be as a board tension card and as a swing tool against some of the huge threats that they have. Obviously, Ragnarok's a nightmare to deal with a lot of the time. Sylvanas a great tool against that, so just going to choose to chill for now, and that is going to disrupt his curve a little bit because the Sylvanas in play would force another reactive turn, allow him to curve into Emperor, but probably doesn't feel like just jamming Emperor into this Drake, so it might just be time to get the Gorehowl rolling.
Yeah, these players are again playing at a pretty fast cadence here, but the Gorehowl does seem to be appropriate. One of the win conditions of the deck is if you can't really kill your opponent with Cthulhu, you can grind them out of resources and then beat them with very strong mid-sized minions.
Yeah, hard to do, and one of the prerequisites of that is that you will need Gorehowl to do a lot of work because you don't have enough individual removal spells to deal with all the mid-range threats as well as the bombs. So if you can line Gorehowl up against all of those mid-range threats, that puts you in a much more solid position. But DDaHyoNi now is going to be able to pick up potentially even another threat. Morose is back!
Yeah, and he's back for more. I'm assuming he picks that. There is the opportunity to pick statistically one of the worst cards in the game, the Grimskull Oracle, or the Raid Leader. He chooses the Raid Leader.
Went Raid Leader. Fascinating. Both of the hard removal options presented here for DDaHyoNi if he feels like he's going to have to deal with a Cthulhu at some point this game or other large minion, and he does go for the highest tempo one with the Naturalize over the less destructive Mulch.
He took Raid Leader. I'm still very surprised by that.
I saw you take Raid Leader off a Discover a
I did.
minute 2 days ago.
Hold on. Context. Time out. I'm holding a T.
Nope, moving on. Dan took Raid Leader.
Goodness. Oh my goodness. It was Jeweled Scarab and I was playing Shaman.
Shush.
All right, well, DDaHyoNi, now he has the opportunity to finally start swinging. His Arcane Giant's starting to get pretty cheap, and he can start removing. And I think one thing he's also on his mind when he took Naturalize over Mulch, I think he wants to try to eventually find a pocket where he can play Naturalize and force his opponent to discard some really crucial cards in the matchup.
That's very, very possible, yeah. He is Pavel chilling on a huge hand size right now, so DDaHyoNi right this second is going to push the hand size up to 10, meaning there will be a card burn here for Pavel, but the Justicar pickup, as you said, is huge, but there's still Cthulhu that can potentially come out. Shield Bearers are a big deal in this matchup as well, so there are a lot of key cards still potentially to be sent down the drain for Pavel.
DDaHyoNi still can play the removal game. I think he's just calculating what's the best odds for, the best opportunity for him to put both Giants, or if he just wants to extend one at a time. The most important thing is to see if you can stagger your threats, so that way you don't play too much into Brawl, but you have to also sense your timing, read your opponent's hand on when you can pressure.
He's just going to go for the single Giant here, and I like this, but Pavel has the clean answer. The clean answer with Shield Bearer, Shield Slam, and Pavel is just operating at a lightning pace right now.
Yeah.
Not a moment to stop and think, but I totally agree with you. You have to be careful not to give value to Brawl, because like Gorehowl can give you extra mileage out of your removal spells, Brawl can do the same thing by catching more than one big minion in a Brawl.
It's the great conundrum playing against Warrior.
Oh, whoa! on.
We interrupt this regular programming to introduce Yogg to the game. Wow, yeah, why not? Just get right to it. Sure.
Nice.
There you go. This is what
Nice.
happens when you premature Yogg.
Nice Yogg, buddy. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're okay with your decision to put that card in your deck and come to a World Championship.
I feel like there should be a bubble caption above DDaHyoNi's head that just says dum dum dum. Just like in the mangas.
This is what the nerf aim to do, right? Is give players a more complex risk-reward tree in terms of playing Yogg. Because previously, it was just obviously correct. They've made it a much more high-risk card, and DDaHyoNi may have just bet his BlizzCon spot on a Yogg roll and lost.
I think he's done. I think mentally it feels like DDaHyoNi might have just given up to the fact that Warrior has had a big hand. He didn't get any significant kill off the naturalized play. He sees that Warrior's being able to gain initiative and keep up in the resources. And now the Warrior's pressuring to potentially kill. I mean, he actually does just kill him this turn. Pavel's going to complete the 4-0 sweep over DDaHyoNi and send the first Korean packet.
Amazing, amazing stuff. EU gets itself back on the board. Pavel pushes through, hoping that he and Dr. Hippie can still give us a sizable representation. But for DDaHyoNi, his quest to push himself back into the high-level competitive scene has fallen just a little bit short, but still phenomenal achievement for him to even have got this far.
All right, so Pavel moves on to play the powerhouse Omega Zero from China. That's going to be happening tomorrow. And that would be the last of our games. We're going to do some wrap-up interviews and analysis. For now, we head over to Admirable, who's waiting with Pavel for a couple of words.
Joined by the winner, a 4-0 set over DDaHyoNi to keep the BlizzCon hopes alive. First off, congratulations on your win. And the question I want to ask you about this set, you were able to defeat his Shaman twice. Do you feel that Shaman was the weakest deck against your lineup, or was it something else?
I think that the weakest decks against my lineup was Yogg Warrior. He have no chance against my Khotun Warrior, and weakest deck against Yogg Warrior from my lineup is Mali Druid, but still have pretty solid chance against it.
And now with your next opponent coming up, you have just a little bit of time to prepare. Do you feel like you're going to be practiced enough going into that match?
I don't know if I have enough time to practice, but I will play some games after I back to hotel with my friends.
Well, I hope your practice goes good for you and you put up a great series tomorrow. Congratulations on the win and good luck in your next set. So that's going to wrap things up for today. We're going to be heading over to Raven in the Bear